From WESH 2, this is continuing coverage of Nicole.
Good morning. Right now at 4 o'clock, Nicole has made landfall south of Vero Beach within the past hour. Areas along our coast have been evacuated, and for good reason. As we take a look here at the Vero Beach Pier, you can see it's getting pounded and has been getting pounded with all of the strong winds and high surf that Nicole is bringing to the area. Thank you for staying with us as we pass 24 hours on the air, continuing to track Nicole. About to say Hurricane Nicole, but that is not true as of this hour. It's now been downgraded to a tropical storm.
Yes, and we want to get right to first warning. Meteorologist Kellyanne Klass with the latest on this storm, which, as Sonica just mentioned, has been downgraded.
Yeah, and that's new as of the 4 a.m. advisory, but still is a very powerful wind field of about 70 miles per hour. If we switch to WSI-1, we'll be able to show you the latest stats from this system. 70 mile per hour wind gusts moving to the west-northwest at 14 miles per hour. Again, made landfall just south of Vero Beach. Now that eye wall is beginning to move into portions of southern Brevard County. Pressure is still the same at about 981 millibars. So it is expected to eventually cut across the state of Florida and then move up towards Georgia as we look towards late tonight and into early tomorrow morning, which means that our impacts throughout the day are expected to increase. Want to show you the latest radar imagery. We could see a lot of that rain still stretching down into the Fort Myers, Southwest Florida area. But for us here in Central Florida, it's heavy bands of rainfall now stretching into our northern locations. You could still see the eye wall, but it is beginning to collapse now that it has that land interaction. Miko, you're seeing calm winds right now. Same thing in Palm Bay, Melbourne. You're starting to get into the portions of the eye wall, which would also mean calm winds. But on the backside of that, we're going to watch for those winds to pick up within the next about hour or so out into Miko and eventually stretching up into Palm Bay and in Melbourne. Right now, also Satellite Beach, starting to see that outer eye wall beginning to push your way, but it's just really heavy rainfall for Cocoa into Port St. John as more of those outer rain bands stretch your way. So we're talking about tropical downpours. Even though you see these yellows and oranges, no reds, you're thinking, okay, it's not that bad, but it is tropical downpours for Cocoa Beach, for Edgewood, for Merritt Island, for South Cocoa Beach, as this line continues to lift up towards the north, extending all the way through I-95 into western Brevard County and even extending into portions of Osceola County. Now we're going into Orange County, where we can see all of this rainfall stretching on in, crossing over I-4, paralleling the beach line, moving into Bithlo, Wedgefield, Christmas. A few more heavier downpours beginning to work in towards Lake Hart, Lake Nona. We're starting to see South Chase kind of clear, but another batch of rainfall is on the way. Same thing for Disney World, Ocoee, Dr. Phillips, Windermere. Up towards Altamont Springs, Longwood, starting to see that rain approach. Chulliota, Geneva, all seeing those tropical downpours, and there's more heavy rain right around the Scottsmore area that's going to push your way. Heavy downpours right around Oak Hill, tropical torrential downpours from Oak Hill all the way up to New Smyrna Beach and Samsula. Pockets of heavier rainfall developing at times, so you're going to hear that torrential downpours. And then as we look towards Ormond Beach, Daytona Beach, starting to get in on some of that rainfall. The steady rain now pushing into Flagler County, backing up towards western Volusia County, into Lake and even Marion County. So it's rainy. It's also windy. This tower cam network here in Orange County was just showing it bouncing up and down. We're dealing with those gusty winds as Nicole gets closer. And to talk more about how strong those wind gusts are is meteorologist Eric Burris.
All right. Good morning to you, Kellyanne. So let's just take a look. Wide perspective showing the overall scenario. And what I've done is I've put the gusts on here to give us an idea. Even in our northern areas, we're seeing gusts to tropical storm force. But when we come into where the storm is itself, we can see it's gusting right now around the Melbourne area to about 43. It's 67 back over to Patrick Space Force Base, 56 out at the Cape, 47 at the Kennedy Space Center. But we've seen gusts to 70 miles an hour at Melbourne and Patrick. We've seen gusts at Launch Complex 39B, which is where Artemis is, to 85. It's currently gusting to 83 miles an hour there, okay? Then we head up into the metro and we can see into tropical storm force, 54 Orlando International Airport, 48 back over to the Executive, 53 in Sanford, 58 in Daytona Beach. Remember, a severe thunderstorm is carrying winds of 58 miles an hour. So we're in a damaging realm. It doesn't have to be a hurricane to provide damage. And one way to tell is a good litmus, frankly, is by looking to the power outages. 7% of Brevard County, according to poweroutage.us, without power. Nearly 22,000 residents, okay? That means that as the eye moves north, you don't want to be outside driving and exploring. There is debris and downed power lines everywhere. Over 2,000 now without power in Volusia County and 1,000 or so into Orange County. These numbers are going to continue to climb. It's going to take a while for crews to even be able to go out and repair. So expecting widespread outages in Brevard and likely power outages for just about the rest of Central Florida. So you're in it now for our eastern areas. The next couple of hours, things are going to be ramping up through the metro area and then into about the 6, 7 o'clock time frame in our northwestern communities. All right. So hurricane, now a tropical storm, but damaging winds moving through. In Brevard County, you've got it now. Next up is going to be Seminole, Volusia, Orange, and back over to the tourist districts. We're going to be okay, friends. We've been through this before. We're going to do it again. Just stay with us. We're going to continue to monitor these conditions every minute over the next couple of hours' time.
All right, Eric, thank you so much. We appreciate that. And monitoring those conditions includes having a team of photojournalists and reporters who are fanned out all over Central Florida, keeping an eye on this storm as it moves closer to Central Florida.
We want to keep things in Brevard County right now, where that eye wall is moving through. WESH 2 Scott Heidler has been monitoring conditions there. And Scott, are you seeing the eye wall anywhere near you right now?
It feels as though it is here because, or at least very close. You know, we're just about 45 miles north of where Nicole made landfall, just south of Vero Beach. And, you know, the last time we spoke with you, the wind was whipping really hard. You know, we've been seeing all around the area gusts up to 70 miles an hour. But just before we came on air, I'd say 10 minutes before we came on air, things calmed a little bit. And you can see it's a little bit calmer now. I'm not even having to head into the wind. We did get a little bit more rain, so I think that would indicate that yes, there is we are either in the eye or on the cusp of the eye, if you will. So a little bit of a change. And as we were just hearing from Eric, it's the backside of the eye that we really need to be cautious about and careful about, and that's particularly for those who might be tempted to go outside and take a look around. Don't do it, because it's not over. There's a lot more coming, so really you need to stay inside and be safe. And also the big concern right now too, power outages. You know, we're seeing those numbers click up slowly. That will most likely increase, you know, once we see the other side come through, and then we're going to see those strong winds come back again. So there could already be down power lines, and there could be more coming. So be very, very careful with that, and also keep an eye out for it. So yeah, we're seeing the winds pick up around the area, both here on the inland side. You know, we've got the Indian River Lagoon, and we know that the water is coming up there. It's swollen, and then on the beyond that, on the barrier island, that was what was going through a recommended evacuation over the last couple of days. Yesterday, they started that evacuation. That is where the big concern is, because yes, you've got these winds, you've got storm surge, and then you have the rainfall. So that's really where the concern is now, on those outer lying areas, those coastal areas, and that beach erosion too. So that's something that we're going to really keep a close eye on, particularly once the sun comes up and people can evaluate, teams can evaluate really what kind of that damage has been over the last several hours. And again, we're not through it. It's still going to be coming through the other side of that eye, at least here where we are now. Reporting live in Melbourne, Scott Heidler, WESH 2 News.
Scott, before we let you go, a quick question for you. We were just chatting with our meteorologist here, and it does seem like you may be in the eye right now. So we know that the backside of the storm will be approaching you very soon, but the worst of you seems to be north at this point. So I'm wondering, what are your takeaways from what you've experienced so far? How bad did conditions get for you?
For us here, quite honestly, it was the wind. Where I'm standing right now, 45 minutes ago, I couldn't be without either heading into the direction where the wind was coming from. So it was very, very strong. My concern is, you know, we've canvassed the area. We're based here in Brevard. We know this county very, very well. My concern is, you know, we're in a sheltered position. We're a little bit in from the coast. We're behind a very large building that's blocking some of the wind. My concern is out on the barrier islands, when you're right on the water, where the system was coming in from, at least at that side, you're exposed. So you really don't have anything blocking the wind whatsoever. So that is the big concern for me right now when you look at what potential impact, potential damage there could be. You know, we probably won't be seeing as much beach erosion as we've been seeing up in Volusia County, but for here, my main concern is that wind damage that could be there. And then, as you mentioned, you know, we're in the eye right now. This is what the eye looks like. The backside of that's coming, so this isn't over. So that's obviously another big concern. And also, we're probably going to be getting much more rain. The rain hasn't been that much as we expected over the last couple of hours, but again, that will probably change. But again, it's the winds that really were whipping earlier, and we'll probably see more of that. I mean, when you look at a list of gusts, areas that have seen gusts of 70 miles an hour plus, it's all over the place from where we are. You just, if you could draw a circumference of maybe about 15, 20 miles, almost every major location had hit about 70 miles plus.
All right, Scott, thank you for that perspective. Hope you and Mike Hansen, your photojournalist there, stay safe as the backside of the storm moves through your area. We'll be continuing to check in with him.
All right, let's move a little bit further north up the coast into Volusia County to see what Claire Metz is seeing at Daytona Beach shores. Claire, we know that Scott just experienced the eye of the storm. What are you seeing and feeling where you are?
Wind, more wind, and more wind. And I'll tell you what, this may be a tropical storm, but these are powerful blows, very, very strong, sustained, and no doubt about it, we are gusting significantly here. Just if you turn the camera just to the street, we are on the beach. We're on the barrier island. This is A1A and Dunlawton, which is the main approach from the mainland to the beach side, and we're on the beach side of this, just off the beach, as I mentioned, and you could just see the wind and the rain blowing across Atlantic Avenue. Unbelievable that we've had no significant power outages right in this area, at least. I saw one transformer blow on the way in, but there's been the lights are still on, and that's pretty remarkable. But I think that's because there were so many repairs done and done well after Ian came through and did so much damage in this area. And again, that too, a tropical storm, but we saw some of the most significant damage we've seen on the coast, on the beach side, from any kind of a storm, be it tropical or hurricane force, during Ian. That's what started this mess, and it is a mess. Our poor battered beachfront was decimated by Ian, laid flat, so there was no elevation to stop the storm surge from coming up. Seawalls went down and the natural dunes went down, and now Nicole is taking more of that, jeopardizing properties and homes here on the coast, particularly in Daytona Beach shores and Wilbur by the Sea. Late yesterday, half a dozen additional condominiums were deemed unsafe in the shores area. 5 others had already been marked unsafe and had been evacuated, but 6 more yesterday as the erosion encroaches to the actual buildings. They'd already lost their protective buffer, and now it's encroaching into the buildings, like up onto the sidewalks in the backyard of those condos, their pool areas. We saw when we started yesterday morning, there was a hotel pool where you could physically walk around it no problem, and hours later that was gone. That protective barrier was gone. Now, luckily, we had heard yesterday that there was great concern of collapse with some of those condominiums. I talked with officials this morning. They have not seen anything like that. We're so glad. We are also so glad that people got out. Police went door to door, sheriff's deputies door to door, making sure folks were getting out because of that imminent threat, no doubt about it. But that has not happened, and we're keeping our fingers crossed that it won't. A little south of me is our neighboring community, Wilbur by the Sea, where a half dozen homes are on edge, and we brought that to you yesterday. They're literally hanging by a cliff, and very likely some of those could get further damage. There were folks trying to do a little revetment on their own yesterday. Not likely that they'll be able to protect against the force of this wind, this wind-driven storm surge. High tide coming just before 9 o'clock this morning, so we haven't seen the worst of this. The area we're in, you can't even get around the corner. The wind is so powerful. But this area yesterday saw a portion of beach safety, ocean rescue headquarters split off, the public restrooms split off and are just kind of dangling into the ocean. That's the power of this system. That's the drama of this system. And we're just hoping for the best for our community, because this is an area we've lived in for decades. We love it. This is the worst we've seen in decades, but we just hope it doesn't get any additionally worse as this day wears on. Probably going to happen, but we're going to keep good thoughts. Back to you.
All right, Claire, thank you so much. And yes, we know that Hurricane Ian did quite a number on Volusia County as a whole, and we're seeing the lingering damage from that last storm and now the impacts of this current storm right now. As soon as the sunlight comes out, we'll be able to get a better idea of just the impact from this latest storm.
Yeah, like so many others at home, we are anxious to see what daylight will bring us and the extent of the damage on our coastline. We want to bring things a little bit inward now over to Seminole County. WESH 2's Dave McDaniel is joining us now from Sanford. And Dave, we just heard from Scott and from Claire, and it seems like a very wind-heavy event for the two of them. But of course, we know in Seminole County, the big concern is flooding and additional rainfall. What are you seeing?
Well, obviously flooding has been an issue, and it's been an issue ever since the days after Ian. You know, all three, Lake Monroe, Lake Jessup, Lake Harney, they all reached record flood levels, and people were dealing with water inside their homes, tons of damage. And now, of course, we're getting another tropical event with more rain and more wind, and the wind is going to slow the recession of the floodwater that they already had, even though the flooding had gone down to minor levels rather than the major flood levels that we had for several weeks. Now things we're improving, and now of course they're going to have 6 maybe 8 inches or more rain on top of that, and then the wind driving the St. Johns River almost backwards, so that new floodwater is not going to be able to move out as easily. Now we moved our position. We were right on the lakefront. You can see all the spray as we were coming to you the last several hours. We have moved a little bit more into downtown Sanford because the spray was getting so intense. We wanted to make sure that the road would stay passable, so we basically moved a little bit more inland. But clearly the wind is picking up. We've got plenty of stuff going on. We shot some video that I want to show it's really kind of a remarkable view of all that water being driven against the seawall right along the Riverwalk, not all that far from Sanford's hospital, and the spray just being driven over the wall, over the wall, over the wall. Lake Monroe is a very large body of water, 9,000 acres. But even at a flood stage, it's not all that deep. Sometimes around maybe 5 to 6 feet in most cases, and then their channel is deeper, but for the most part it averages a very shallow body of water. So you get a lot of wind pushing that water. It can really do a lot of damage, and we saw the waves just crash against the seawall. The good news is it looked like the Riverwalk, Seminole Boulevard, I didn't see any damage. The trees were up and the lights were still on. All of the lights along the Riverwalk that lighted the way seemed to be in good shape. Now down here, you can see where the wind is blowing significantly down Seminole Boulevard in this section. There's water that's ponding in the street and all kinds of signs that are wobbly. We're making sure that we're keeping upwind from anything that might become loose debris. But again, Nicole is coming. Nicole is getting closer, and the wind is certainly picking up as that storm gets closer and closer to Central Florida. Reporting live in Seminole County, Dave McDaniel, WESH 2 News.
All right, Dave, thank you so much. We appreciate that. It's crazy to see Lake Monroe. We know it's a lake, but it almost looks like a landlocked ocean when you see just how busy those waves were and just how much it was churning there along that shoreline there in Sanford. Yeah, the images we're getting, even in the overnight hours, are unfathomable, some of them, especially along our coastline. We want to bring in first warning meteorologist Kellyanne Klass. A lot has happened in the last couple of hours. Kellyanne, catch us up to speed.
So Nicole is now a tropical storm as of the 4 o'clock advisory. So at 3 o'clock, it was still a Category 1 hurricane with winds of 90 miles per hour. Now it is a tropical storm, but keep in mind, it's a high-end tropical storm, wind of about 70 miles per hour. It has made landfall in Vero Beach, and it's now beginning to move into Brevard County and Osceola County. Some of the outer eye wall portions are beginning to stretch into Melbourne, into Cocoa Beach, and into portions of Osceola County. You can see the recent wind gusts in the metro, 53 miles per hour. So we're talking about higher wind wind gusts now beginning to reach our central and western locations. So when can we expect the worst of the weather? Well, for Volusia County in the next few hours, we're talking about even stronger winds than what you're seeing now. The heaviest rainfall now pushing through, but more is on the way. We're talking about 4 to 7 inches of precipitation for Orange County. Again, in the next few hours, you're already starting to see those higher wind gusts. But as that center of the storm gets closer and pulls into Orange County, that's when we'll see the strongest wind gusts of about 60 miles per hour. And rainfall anywhere from about 4 to 6 inches of precipitation. For Seminole County, same kind of deal. Within the next few hours, we're expected to see the worst of the weather as that core of the storm moves through. Then going into Lake County, same deal. We're still talking about max wind gusts about 60 miles per hour to about 70 miles per hour, very localized. So watching for the wind. Obviously, that big concern. Beach erosion, also our big concern, but we're keeping a close eye on the potential for flooding. We're not talking about a large scale like with Ian. Ian was forecasted to at least be a foot of rainfall. We're not talking about a foot of rainfall. And in some locations, even 2 feet of rainfall. We're not talking about that, but in case we are still talking about 4 to 6 inches of precipitation for most locations, 5 to 7 down to our south. And you add on top of that already the swollen river out at St. John's. Want to tell you that we are at major flood stage for the St. John's River at Astor. Current level at 4.17 feet. It'll crest to 4.2 tomorrow and stay at 4.2 through Friday. So major flood stage there. And we're still going to be watching for that potential of localized flooding. Again, it's not on the scale of Ian, but just know that our already saturated grounds and rivers are expected to see some sort of localized flooding. All right, let's head over to Eric Burris with more about the impacts from Ian.
All right, good morning to you, Kellyanne. So here's a look at our live radar, and let's just kind of set the stage. We've got a strong tropical storm moving through our Space Coast communities, and more of Central Florida really getting into the storm itself. If you live in Mico, you're in the eye wall right now, or excuse me, the eye, but the back side, which is a much weaker broken eye wall, is going to be moving in. So you're just going to start to get those whipping winds once again picking up, and lighter rain this time. But up around Melbourne, you're just now starting to get into the eye. It's going to be a little while, but I do caution you, because the storm is starting to march a little more west than northwest, we're going to see this kind of eastern side of that eye wall move back into Melbourne shortly. So just a heads up. Who's getting the worst of the weather? Cocoa Beach, Cape Canaveral, back over toward the port, the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, Port St. John. Folks that live along the 520, the 528, the causeways here, just a heads up. That's the worst of the weather. That continues up through the Canaveral National Seashore. I'm hearing the bells and whistles of an alarm, so we'll have to check in and just make sure that there's no weather advisories that we don't have at the moment. Chuliota, Bithlo, very heavy rain starting to fill in with more intense activity back over to Sanford and Longwood. Downtown Orlando, it's raining, but the next wave is going to be a little stronger. We're going to be talking about more wind gusts for you. Osceola, Polk counties, sure, it's nasty. It's getting gusty as the storm itself gets closer to you. You'll see those winds overall picking up, but I think the eye of the storm moves over Kissimmee and even downtown Orlando. To the north, Flagler County, Flagler Beach, it's already picking up. Palm Coast, it'll be picking up shortly. If you're out in Marion County, Sumter County, it'll be a little while. Let me tell you who's really getting walloped at this hour, though. Volusia County, and we heard from Claire a moment ago. There's these little ripples here and here off the shoreline that'll be coming in shortly, and those are really going to have either strong tropical storm force winds. I wouldn't be surprised if we had a hurricane force wind gust here or there, especially at the coastline. West Volusia County, DeLand, DeBary, Deltona, Casadega, Enterprise, Lake Ashby, Lake Helen. Lots of very heavy rainfall pushing through our area, and these next few hours, Futurecast is showing 5 a.m., 6 a.m. The center of circulation kind of marches right toward downtown Orlando. If you're on the north side, the problem is you're not going to get that eye. You're just going to get this unrelenting rain and wind energy. Here's 8 a.m. pushing over the Four Corners, Claremont, Winter Haven, with the worst of the weather kind of on the north side. By 9, 10, 11 o'clock, though, it marches out, and we will be quieting down. By lunchtime, it's going to be a much different scenario. Just a couple more hours. Friends, we've done this before. We're going to continue to be fine. We just have to stay prepared. And if it gets rough in your area, get into your safe room, away from doors and away from windows. Okay, it's 424. Let's get a peek outside on the roadways. Certainly you shouldn't be driving, but Megan Mackey's monitoring those cameras.
Yeah, that's right. Good morning, Eric. Definitely not the morning to be driving. I do want to show you what those road conditions are looking like and why you should not be out on the roads this morning. This is a live look I-95 in Brevard County. This is just at the beach line. You can see just how windy it is here and how rainy it is. Good news is we're not seeing any cars, which is what we want to see, especially along portions of I-95 this morning. Also looking at Highway 1 in Mims. This is at State Road 46. You can see pretty much same conditions here, so not a good morning to be out on the roads. Also in Volusia County, we are seeing some of those bridges closed, especially over to some of those more coastal areas. Oak Ridge Boulevard is closed, as well as Main Street, Mason Avenue, as well as International Speedway and Silver Beach Avenue. These are all the causeways in Volusia County heading over to Daytona Beach. Those will not reopen until FHP and FDOT has the opportunity to inspect those once the storm is over. Sonica Sheldon, back over to you.
All right, Megan, thank you so much. It is 425. We want to get you caught up on the latest as far as power outages are concerned. FPL reports that they have 39,220 customers who don't have power right now. We've got that broken down county by county right there on your screen. Duke reports that more than 9,000 of its customers don't have power across Central Florida. And OUC right now, they're just reporting scattered minor outages, including a little more than 1,000 customers in their utility service region.
Notice the customers in Brevard County, their power outages jumped by almost 20,000 in just the last half hour since that eyewall came ashore. All right, we do want to get a check of our crews scattered across Central Florida as Nicole continues to impact our area. Over to Osceola County now, and WESH 2's Megan Mulatto reports.
Hey guys, conditions aren't too bad out here. You can see the rain's coming down and it is also pretty windy, as you can tell, but we wanted to bring you back to the same spot that we were at before Hurricane Ian, or actually when Hurricane Ian was coming over us. This is Orange Blossom Trail right here to my left near Bonita Street. This roadway was completely flooded during Hurricane Ian. If you recall, last time we were here, OBT was just impassable. Cars were getting stuck trying to drive through the floodwaters, and later on in the morning, the sheriff's office had their airboat out here rescuing people from nearby homes that were flooded. Now, this is not the case this morning. Several cars have gone by without a problem. No one's needing rescue that we know of, thankfully. But again, the rain is still coming down and it is pretty windy out here as well. But the conditions out here in Osceola County are something that we'll be monitoring throughout the morning. If you take a look at the roadway, I'm not sure if you can see that, but the wind is pushing the water across it pretty quickly. But again, still just incomparable to the impacts from Hurricane Ian, at least at this time. So there's a car coming through right now. It looks like it's a Kissimmee police officer passing through just fine. Another car pulling up. That's a Jeep. Should be just fine driving through OBT this morning as well. A couple of other cars coming out. But we did speak to Osceola County Sheriff Marco Lopez yesterday. He is urging residents to stay inside. So unless you absolutely have to drive out here in these conditions during the storm, stay indoors, stay safe. We are out here monitoring the conditions for you. I'm going to go ahead and toss it back to you guys in the studio.
All right, we can see the conditions there. It's a difference from Ian because we checked in with Megan the last time and that road was flooded out. People's cars were stalled, but this morning it is slick and people should still take it easy because the roads are wet. All right, we'll be right back.
From WESH 2, this is continuing coverage of Nicole.
Right now at 4:30, Central Florida is feeling the impact of Tropical Storm Nicole. It made landfall overnight as a Category 1 hurricane and has since been downgraded as of the top of this hour. Thanks for joining us for our continuing coverage. I'm Sonica Danke.
And I'm Sheldon Dutez. We do have a team of photojournalists and reporters that are fanned out and scattered all over Central Florida right now, keeping an eye on the conditions as this now tropical storm makes its way toward and across Central Florida.
We do want to begin with a check of our first warning meteorologist team. Kellyanne Klass is joining us now with a look at the latest with this storm. Kellyanne, who's feeling it the worst now?
So the worst really is out into Brevard County and portions of Osceola County as we're starting to get into the outer eye wall. So that is the strongest wind. That's where it's located. The winds of 70 miles per hour. But then as you clear that, you see calm conditions. But another round of wind from the backside of that storm or the eye wall is going to be on the way. Here's the latest from the National Hurricane Center. Again, winds at 70 miles per hour. It is racing to the west-northwest at 14 miles per hour. And the latest track has it coming off the coast of Florida by this afternoon and then making a second landfall later on today, or even hugging the coastline of the Big Bend area throughout the evening hours, eventually then stretching into Georgia as we look towards Friday afternoon. So here's what you need to know the latest from this system. Hurricane warnings have been dropped for coastal Volusia County and Brevard County, but tropical storm warnings have been issued. So every single location in Central Florida is under a tropical storm warning. You can see that eye wall slowly beginning to collapse. Right now, it's beginning to push from Brevard County into Osceola County. So St. Cloud, Narcoossee, your winds are about to pick up. And then once you're into this eye wall, you'll see some calm conditions. But heads up, Miko, that outer eye wall, the back edge of that eye wall is beginning to stretch on in. So if you are outside right now, get indoors. Those winds are about to pick up. Melbourne right now, currently in the calm conditions, but up towards our north in Titusville, you are seeing the heaviest rainfall pretty much stretching along the beach line, moving up towards Port St. John. A couple of heavier downpours around Satellite Beach, Cocoa Beach, up towards Merritt Island. Then it's just a stream of rainfall. So let's say from the Cape and Oak Hill all the way down into Orange County through Kissimmee. Heads up downtown Orlando, Winter Park, Maitland, Ocoee, Apopka, even the tourist district all the way through Windermere and even Dr. Phillips. This heavy batch of rainfall is beginning to stretch your way, crossing over I-4. So we're going to be watching out for that. Another round of heavy rainfall is on the way for areas around Choliota, Geneva, Deltona, Sanford. We're really just talking about scattered rain at this point, all the way from Volusia County moving into Flagler County. A couple of pockets of gustier winds and heavy rainfall just off the coast of Brevard County and Volusia County. If that holds together, certainly going to bring those strong gusts your way. Then as we look towards Flagler County, every single coastal location now cover basically into this heavy rainfall, and the back edge or the leading edge of the heavier rainfall is now beginning to push towards Astor, Paisley, into the Ocala National Forest, eventually stretching towards Citra, Ocala, and Bellevue. So these locations, even though you're dry right now, wait about 45 minutes to an hour and we'll start to see some of that rainfall stretch your way. Claremont, Citrus Ridge, Sorrento, all seeing that rain. Same thing for northwestern Lake County into northern Sumter County. Even though you're dry for now, that rain and some of the stronger winds are going to be stretching your way. So right now, as we take a look at it, not looking that impressive, but it still is packing those strong gusty winds. And Eric, in some locations are exceeding 50 miles per hour.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I just checked the sensors over at the Kennedy Space Center, and still we're registering an 81 mile per hour gust over at Launch Complex 39B, which is where Artemis is. Here's a look at the recent gusts around Central Florida, well into tropical storm force. Still at 67 miles per hour over at Patrick Space Force Base. It's 53 at the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, 54 officially at the shuttle landing facility, but over at 39B, we're over 80 miles an hour. That's closer to the water, though. Into Orlando, 59 currently gusting at the International Airport, 52 downtown, 45 at the Kissimmee Gateway Airport, 53 in Sanford, 55 in Daytona Beach. And our northern spots, even Flagler Beach, with this band of rain moving in, we're gusting to 43. It's gusting to 35 over in Ocala. The power outages continue to build more and more. We're now nearly to 40,000 residents in Brevard County without power. And we look to the rest of town, over 3,000 in Volusia County. It's 1,000 in Orange County, 1,000 in Osceola County, according to poweroutage.us. Want to look at the overall wind graph here, okay? Kind of interesting. In green, our Futurecast model. In pink, the European model. In yellow, the American GFS. The next couple of hours, this is Orlando. The next couple of hours, the winds are really elevated, but notice those those winds coming down, thankfully, this afternoon into this evening. And while we'll stay nice and breezy over the course of the next couple of days, it's not going to be anything like that. One interesting point of reference, though, this pink line here, you see how it goes down and back up? That's the European model saying that the eye of the tropical system will move over downtown Orlando. Pretty interesting stuff. So there's a look from our first warning live Doppler radar, and you can see lots of the heavy rainfall moving through. It will be picking up, though, over here in our western areas in just a little bit. If you're hearing it loud outside, know this. The storm is at least accelerating its forward movement, so we're not going to be sitting here all day long. It's a couple of hours that we're going to have to deal with some noise outside. If you get concerned at any point, go into your safe room as far away from doors and windows as you can. We'll be getting you through it. We're all getting through it together. Back to you.
All right, Eric, thank you. You can see the power outage numbers jumping, just a reflection of the kind of conditions that we're starting to see across Central Florida here. We want to begin our team coverage as we check in with our crew of reporters across Central Florida in Flagler County.
Yes, let's get right to WESH 2's Tony Atkins. Tony, you're there along the beach, keeping an eye on the Flagler Beach Pier. How are conditions right now?
Well, Sheldon, about an hour ago, I told you that the winds were strong, and now we're starting to see rain make its way here through Flagler County again. That added on to the conditions that we've already been seeing. I want to show you as best I can here. This is the Flagler Beach, and you can just see the wake, just how high it's coming up, and we are still seeing some of that rough surf as well. And it's hard to show on camera, but for me, I can tell that the pier, nearly 100 years old, all wooden, is just being pounded by the waves as it crashes, as the waves make their way here to shore. Now, I do want to show you a camera that will give you a better look at the pier at this time. You can just see the strong winds and the water making its way through this area. Again, there has not been traffic, or we haven't seen anyone out here, which is a good sign because emergency officials are urging people to stay safe and stay outside as this storm makes its way through. I will say at this point, this is probably some of the worst conditions we've seen so far as Nicole continues to pass through the Flagler County area. We're going to continue to monitor the situation out here in terms of the weather as it continues to develop. Hopefully, as the sun starts to come up, we can get a better idea of what this historic pier will look like after another night of being hit by storms following significant damage after Hurricane Ian. For now, reporting live in Flagler County, Tony Atkins, WESH 2 News.
All right, Tony, thanks so much. And yeah, just the fury of those waves crashing on that pier there. And we know that it has suffered damage over the years, and hopefully it can withstand the damage from this storm as it's moving up. But as Tony mentioned, we'll have a better idea once the sun comes up and we can see a little bit more about what is happening.
Yeah, and keep in mind that the pier is scheduled to be reconstructed next year.
Yeah, all right. Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
We want to check in with Luana Munoz over in Osceola County now, taking it a little bit more inland. And Luana, what are you seeing?
So we are in the downtown area of Kissimmee, and really within the last half hour, we have seen these wind gusts really pick up and become the strongest and the heaviest. The downpour out here as well, we've seen that pick up quite a bit. You can see behind me all the rain that is coming down. The winds are just picking up and getting stronger and stronger. Right now, it's just a little bit calmer, but just moments before this live shot, those winds were really sort of starting to push us around. The good news that we haven't seen out here is we have not seen flooding, and that we know was the huge issue, the crux of the problem with Hurricane Ian. A lot of the homes in the St. Cloud, Buenaventura Lakes area, Good Samaritan Village area, they were underwater, and they had to do a lot of water rescues. We've been seeing the sheriff's deputies out here patrolling the area, police officer, law enforcement, making sure that people are just really staying off of the streets, that people are hunkering down, staying inside. We have seen quite a few cars as it's getting closer to the morning hours coming through here, but nothing so severe, nothing like what we were seeing during Hurricane Ian. So if you can, stay home. That is our best advice to you. Try to stay off the roadways as much as possible. But for now, just exactly what I've been saying. We've just been seeing an increase of those winds and that downpour of rain. We know that there have been quite a few closures across the county, across Osceola County. That's for all Osceola schools. They won't open until Monday, as well as cities and other county offices and government buildings. They're going to remain closed until Monday. They also said trash pickup. If your days fell on today, Wednesday or Thursday, it's going to resume on Friday and Saturday. So just continue to, they're going to monitor the conditions. The EOC, the emergency management officials, have said that they're not expecting as much rain as they saw during Hurricane Ian. They did not open shelters during this storm. But they are monitoring the conditions, and they're going to reopen their offices this morning at around 7 a.m. or so. But for now, the good news is we are safe. We're okay. Just a lot of heavy wind and heavy rains out here. Reporting live in Osceola County, I'm Luana Munoz. Back to you.
And Luana, thank you. You can see the wind is coming by in gusts. Glad to hear, though, that the rain is not as bad as we saw during Ian, because I know that was a big concern for people. Even as we were predicting that conditions weren't going to get as bad as Ian, I mean, still there's a lot of, trauma associated with what residents over there in Kissimmee had to deal with after the last storm.
And it's just interesting, it'd be a little bit quiet in Luana's shot, and then the wind would pick back up, and it would get a little bit louder in the background, and it's just a testament to how this storm is moving through our area. All right, we do want to take our coverage back to the coast right now towards Daytona Beach and Volusia County, and that's where Bob Hazen joins us live. Bob.
Yeah, guys, really strong winds out here this morning. We are in Daytona Beach, right at the International Speedway Boulevard access to the beach, so really close to the water here. And I want to show you behind me, this is the road leading up to here, and you can see the palm trees really blowing hard in the wind. At times, you can see the actual sign over top of the road there, that, the one that says the world's most famous beach. You can see it swaying in the wind right now, just kind of getting pushed around. Hopefully that won't get knocked over in this wind, but it has been really getting bent around by all of this wind. And sometimes you can actually see the sea foam kind of spraying up the street because the wind is just picking it up and shooting it all up. And I want to show you back here down towards the beach access. You can see the water is all the way up to where the booths normally would be, where those rails are to keep people from driving on there. That's where the water is already at this point. You can kind of see that big mound of the sea foam right there. So very strong winds hitting us out here right now. My hat just got taken off again, so I'll have to find that in just a little bit. I can tell you the bridges into Daytona Beach are all blocked off by police right now. And I want to show you some video from earlier when we were driving in. What we saw coming down ISB, we could see flashes in the air. That was the transformers on the power poles blowing up, big sparks coming out. And we saw some places that had no power out there. We also stopped along the riverfront, the shops there, to see how things are. A lot of them are have sandbags in front of the doors to keep them safe from rising water, but it did not look like the water had gotten to the point where it was going to get there into the businesses. It was just kind of pooling along the street. So the businesses there on the riverfront at least seem like they're doing all right. We are in a place right next to a condo building, so we're pretty secure, but you can see here on the street how strong the wind is. And there's some of that sea foam I was talking about spraying right up the street. We haven't seen a whole lot of damage yet in this part of Daytona Beach. We are going to, of course, keep out here and monitor it as this wind is really strong. The rain, not so bad right now. It's really just the wind and how bad it's kind of just peppering you with all of that. So we're going to stick around out here and keep an eye on the conditions. Trying to find my hat here in just a second as well. Back to you guys.
All right, Bob, be careful and be safe finding that hat. He's there along International Speedway Boulevard. We've been checking in with Claire Metz, either by Wilbur by the Sea or Daytona Beach shores, and everywhere in Volusia County it looks like it's getting those whipping winds and that heavy rain right now.
Yeah, he mentioned seeing transformers blow out. Right now, power outages in Volusia County are topping 2,600. Keep that in mind. We're expecting those numbers to increase. All right, got some bridge closure announcements for you over in Volusia County. The bridges crossing the Intracoastal Waterway are now closed in both directions. The Florida Department of Transportation will inspect all of the bridges once the storm passes, and it is safe to do so before they are reopened. Proof of residency will be required for re-entry. Important to keep in mind there.
All right, our sports team is wearing multiple hats during this storm right now, and we want to check in with Kendra Douglas and Zach Maskovich. They are driving around in the mobile lab, checking out the conditions in Orange County. Are you guys still in Winter Park right now?
Yeah, Sheldon, we are in Winter Park right now. We checked out two places. We went to Baldwin Park and now we're at Winter Park. So when we were at Baldwin Park, we wanted to go check out Lake Baldwin Park and the dog park, especially because I remember when Hurricane Ian came around, they took out a lot of the dog park area. So we went around that area. There's a lot of debris just as the wind and the rain continues to be a constant around here. But as we go down Winter Park right now, as you can kind of see, we haven't seen too much flooding. We haven't seen too much going on with the roads that are keeping us from being worried. It's been pretty clear. We've been having just constant rain down here, kind of off and on winds a little bit. It hasn't been too harsh for us here as we are in Winter Park. So that is a good thing. Some of the places that we've seen that of course have had issues with flooding because of Hurricane Ian all seem to be okay, seem to not have the same issues like we are seeing now, like we did see then, excuse me. So that is pretty good as I can tell you guys. Back to you guys.
All right, Kendra, really quickly here, we've been checking with all of our crews across Central Florida. Over on the coast, it seems like people are adhering to what officials are requesting and staying off of the roadways. More inland, we're starting to see some people out on the roads. What are you seeing? Are you seeing a lot of people out and about?
Not a lot of people. We have seen some, like right here, you'll kind of see some cars coming in actually, but we did notice a lot of police officers that are just kind of maintaining and patrolling the area and just making sure that everyone is taking care of themselves and that they're driving around safely. As we mentioned, we kind of were in Lake Eola. That had a lot of flooding. We caught up with a police officer who said that he luckily crosses his fingers, hasn't had to go anywhere. He hasn't been called to help or anybody. So we haven't seen too much going on, but as you can see, the roads are still a little clear and we haven't really seen that many people.
Okay, good to know. Kendra, thank you to you and to Zach Maskovich. Stay safe out on the roadways. A good reminder here, too, that she mentioned she was seeing a lot more law enforcement out on the roadways. We've heard from multiple counties in our area saying that they are going to be patrolling more, and they will also have specific crime units out. Remember, punishments are stricter when we are under a state of emergency. So all of our local law enforcement agencies are also working overtime as well to make sure that everybody stays safe during the duration of this storm.
All right, it is 4:47. If you're just joining us, Nicole has been downgraded from a hurricane to a tropical storm. The eye of that storm is over Brevard County right now. Let's get right to first warning meteorologist Kellyanne Class to help us plan for the rest of this hour.
Yeah, and you know, Brevard County, Osceola County certainly seeing the worst of the weather right now. And since it has been downgraded to a tropical storm, there are now tropical storm warnings in effect for each and every location. So no longer a hurricane warning for coastal Volusia County or really all of Brevard County. We're talking about tropical storm warnings. However, this storm still is packing winds of 70 miles per hour in some locations. So it's a high-end tropical storm. We're going to be dealing with these strong winds throughout the morning hours. That eye of the storm is now passed through Melbourne. You're starting to see conditions improve, but expected for the backside of that eye wall to eventually bring back those winds. Gusty winds across most of the area. The airport reporting about a 60-mile-per-hour wind gust. Same thing along the Cape. 67-mile-per-hour wind gust at Patrick Space Force Base. And as we take a look a little bit closer to where it made landfall, they're starting to see the winds in Indian River County pick up from the backside of that eye wall. We're starting to see conditions gradually deteriorate from Mico up towards Palm Bay and into Melbourne. But we start to get some of these outer eye walls beginning to push through Osceola County and eastern Orange County. So eastern Orange County expected the worst of the weather to arrive now, at least for the metro and our western locations. You still have some time, but this eye wall is now beginning to push and bring in those stronger winds. Again, we had a 67-mile-per-hour wind gust right around Patrick Space Force Base as the storm continues to lift towards the west-northwest at about 14 miles per hour. Here's a better look at the recent wind gusts. Starting to see about a 40-mile-per-hour wind gust back towards Lake County, 54-mile-per-hour wind gusts in Daytona Beach. Again, these are pretty recent, but we're not talking about the strongest wind gusts of the system just yet. So again, Brevard County, worst of the weather is now. You could see max wind gusts about 70 miles per hour with pockets of 80-mile-per-hour winds. I know meteorologist Eric Burris was seeing some of those 80-mile-per-hour winds right along the launch complexes out along the Cape. So watching for that. As we go into Osceola County, we're starting to see the worst of the weather for the northwestern locations. It will take some time to reach Osceola, rather St. Cloud, Kissimmee, Poinciana. It will take some time to reach your area, but still expect winds of about 50 to 60 miles per hour with max wind gusts of about 70 miles per hour to 80 miles per hour. So breaking it all down for you, at least for that 12-hour forecast, we're going to be in the thick of this all the way through the afternoon hours, but things gradually improve as we look towards later on this evening. Worst of the weather arrival times really for our northwestern locations out into Marion County later on this morning, so you still have some time before you see the worst of the weather, but really seeing that right now, Eric, down into our southeastern locations.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So let's take a look at the radar, Kellyanne, and see what's doing. The center of circulation kind of moving west-northwest, which is now putting the metro area into some of the more intense winds, as Kellyanne had mentioned. If you live in Ocala or the Villages, it's about to start getting loud outside. Let's take you down and just show you where the actual eye is. The eye itself is beginning to fill in, which is very normal for weakening tropical systems. You don't have that deeper area of low pressure, so it collapses in and you just kind of get this swirling area of rain. But it is just very, very heavy rain and wind up and down Interstate 95 from Satellite Beach through Cocoa Beach, up through Cocoa, Cape Canaveral, the Space Force Station, the port, back over toward Port St. John, with the intense activity around Sharps and Cocoa right along the 528 here, right down the Merritt Islands. So heads up, if you live in this area, this is some of the worst that we have seen yet today. Further to the north, an outer feeder band that's not really even associated with the eye wall structure anymore for Scottsmore, Oak Hill, Edgewater, the Canaveral National Seashore, that it loops over through Seminole County, getting into Sanford, getting into Lake Brantley, Sweetwater, Longwood, Alaqua, Lake Mary, Apopka, back over toward, say, Zellwood, Sorrento, next couple of minutes time, downtown Orlando, Winter Park, very heavy rainfall, the very gusty winds, and all of this activity just wrapping around the center of circulation. Port Orange, Daytona Beach, Ormond Beach. While it's relatively quiet now, I do want to caution you, this next ripple of energy with some pretty intense tropical downpours about to come ashore from about New Smyrna Beach and 40 through the inlet through Daytona Beach shores. Not good there, certainly, all the way up through about Holly Hill and Corona. Further to the south around the tourist district, this little wave of energy is working right over the Walt Disney World. Now, the center of circulation is going to move over downtown Orlando and Disney World. It's really going to be something, right? A closer inspection showing that next couple of minutes as that moves out, we'll have the next wave that's traveling down the beach line around Bithlow and Wedgefield. But if you live in Marion or Sumter counties, it's breezy, but there's that wall of rain working in your direction the next couple of hours time. So take a look at Futurecast. Let me just stop this at 6 a.m. Center of circulation, Kissimmee, St. Cloud, lifting up through 7 a.m. through the metro area. Our northern spots will still be getting the worst of the weather. Thankfully, the backside of Nicole is significantly quieter. So once the center moves through, the backside has plenty of wind and rain. It's just not as much, not as intense. And by about 9, 10, 11 o'clock, we'll just be getting these passing feeder bands on the backside, but gradually these winds will be quieting down. All right, it is 4:53. Let's get a look out on the roads this morning, not because we want you to drive, but just to see what it's looking like out there.
Yeah, good morning, Eric. We do not want you to be out on the roads this morning. We just want to show you what the roads are looking like and why you should stay at home. Here's a live look at the beach line near Cocoa. As Eric was mentioning, we are seeing some of the strongest winds and rains. If you are traveling that direction this morning, you should not be on the road. I just saw one car, but for the most part, we're really not seeing a lot of people traveling this morning. Also seeing some of those conditions moving along I-4. This is a live look near Maitland. You can see it is pretty windy and rainy here. Not as bad as we're seeing along I-95 in the beach line, but conditions will continue to worsen here throughout the morning. We were following an earlier crash along the turnpike that has cleared, but those are some of the things that can happen, especially in conditions like this. Along our coastline, Flagler Beach, we are seeing a closure here, A1A, from Ocean Shore Boulevard to the St. Johns County line here. This is due to that strong storm surge that has pushed up that sand and water onto the roadway. Sonica Sheldon, back over to you.
All right, Megan, thank you so much. And we are starting to see some of the conditions that were left behind after this storm made landfall in the Vero Beach area, and our coverage continues a little bit closer to the coast.
30 miles south of where that storm made landfall in Jensen Beach, NBC's Jay Gray has filed this report.
Good morning, and Nicole made landfall just to the north of us near Vero Beach about 3 this morning. It was a Category 1 hurricane, but is already now downgraded to a tropical storm. Don't let that fool you. This is a storm that's still going to cause some problems. We've seen heavy rain. We've seen wind gusts here in Jensen Beach over 60 miles an hour. And of course, you've got that tidal surge that continues. Low tide right now, but a high tide on the way. That's expected to bring more problems. Right now in the state of Florida, more than 80,000 people without power. That number expected to grow as this storm makes its way through the state and up into Georgia, eventually over the next few days into the Carolinas as well. So this storm will have some staying power. The good news is it seems to be moving quickly right now, but in its wake it's leaving beach erosion. We've got some roads damage, and we've got some water in places that it just is not supposed to be right now. There are several homes and businesses that have been affected structurally by this storm. And once we get daybreak, we'll have a little more on how devastating that Nicole has been, making landfall again early this morning near Vero Beach and continuing to move across the state of Florida right now. That's the latest from here in Jensen Beach. I'm Jay Gray. Back to you.
And we are starting to see the impacts across our area as well. But right now, we want to get you caught up on some of the theme park closures in our area. SeaWorld is closed today, and Aquatica Orlando also closed today. We're keeping an eye out for their announcements for their plans for tomorrow into the weekend as well.
Legoland is adjusting its hours. Legoland Florida theme park will be open 12 to 6. This was yesterday, I believe. Peppa Pig theme park 12 to 5. No, this is today. Legoland Water Park is closed, but the resort hotels are open.
And it'll be interesting to see the calls that businesses make today on whether or not they're going to open for the back half of the day, or if they're going to, stay closed for the morning. We are following up with all of them. We're passing that information to all of you at home as well. So it looks like maybe the afternoon might be the time that people start getting back out and about.
Probably very contingent on where you are.
Yes.
Our coast will take
1,000%
some more time to recover. All right, it is 4:57. We are going to head to a break. In the meantime, just a reminder for you, when you are not able to watch us on air, we will always be online for you on WESH.com and our WESH 2 News mobile app. Make sure to turn on those alerts so that we can alert you to any potential severe weather in your area.
From WESH 2, this is continuing coverage of Nicole.
Right now at 5 o'clock, Central Florida is in the eye of the storm. If you're just waking up and joining us this morning here on WESH 2 News, Nicole made landfall overnight as a Category 1 hurricane and is now moving across Florida as a tropical storm.
We have team coverage for you all morning long, from Brevard County to Osceola up to Seminole and over to Volusia and Flagler counties. We have crews spanned around Central Florida to keep you updated as the storm moves through. But we are going to begin with our first warning weather team to get you started at the 5 a.m. hour.
Yeah, and we have meteorologist Kellyanne Klass along with Eric Burson. We'll start with you, Kellyanne, and talk about this system. What do we need to know right now about its location?
So the worst of the weather really going to be impacted for Brevard County, Osceola County, and now stretching up towards Orange County as the center of circulation continues to race across Central Florida. Winds of 70 miles per hour moving to the west-northwest at 14 miles per hour. Again, made landfall earlier this morning south of Vero Beach and now is going to cut across Central Florida throughout the day today. By 1 o'clock, emerging out in the Gulf of Mexico, potentially also riding up the coast of the Big Bend area, and then eventually lifting into Georgia by very early tomorrow morning. Another thing with this system is now that it's a tropical storm, all the hurricane warnings have been dropped. So every single location across Central Florida is now in a tropical storm warning. Nevertheless, it is a high-end tropical storm with very strong winds. That center of circulation is now moving away from Brevard County. So Brevard County, those winds are picking up for you, and is now beginning to push into Osceola Osceola County, so around Kenansville up towards St. Cloud. This is where we're going to see the strongest winds. Outside of that, we're already getting bands of rainfall being fed into Orange County up towards Bislow, the beach line, all the way to Lake Nona, all the way to Maitland, Winter Park, through I-4, cutting across into Apopka and Ocoee, through Windermere, even Dr. Phillips, all the way down to the tourist district, and is racing towards Lake County. So Claremont, Bay Lake, Sorrento, get ready for the tropical downpours and also the strong gusty winds that are associated with that. So Windermere, Ocoee, again, starting to see the heaviest rainfall lift your way, moving towards Ferndale and Claremont into Lake County. As we go into Seminole County, that band of rainfall continues to move through the area and then eventually stretch into southern Seminole County, or southern Volusia County rather. So towards Oak Hill, all the way towards Deltona, Geneva, Chuliota, Sanford, Longwood, all the way down to Altamont Springs. It is just torrential downpours very early this morning as those bands continue to feed into our central location. Still some lingering rainfall. It's light though for Cape Canaveral, Cocoa Beach, all the way to Cocoa and Merritt Island. Then you go to Port St. John, Mims, and Titusville, and that's where we're tracking some heavier rainfall going down into Palm Bay, Floridana Beach, Mico, Melbourne. It's certainly some heavier rainfall, but we're not talking about the tropical downpours like we are for areas up towards our north. New Smyrna Beach, Oak Hill, batches of heavier rain just off the coastline expected to push in, and with that, we're talking about gusts of wind moving onshore from Astor to Paisley. Light to moderate rainfall, but more rain is headed your way. And then as we look towards Ocala, most of the area is nice and quiet, but that leading edge of the system is beginning to push your way. So within the next hour or two, expect the rain to gradually increase. Same thing for Rutland, Lake Panasoffkee, Bushnell, watching for that rain to slowly move your way. Take a look outside right now. This is I-4 here at WESH 2. You see the picture. It's rainy. It's windy. That's going to be the theme throughout the morning hours. And to talk more about that is meteorologist Eric Burris.
All right, Kellyanne. Yeah, so the storm itself is moving now into the metro area. Conditions deteriorating rapidly there. Had a wind gust of 60 miles an hour at Orlando International just a moment ago. 58 current gusts at Orlando Sanford International Airport. Look over along the shoreline. Still gusting. 62 over at the Cape Patrick Space Force Station. 56 in Melbourne. 60 at the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. Gusting right now to 47 over at the Kennedy Space Center. But just checked, and winds 7 feet up at Launch Complex 39B, which is where Artemis is, made it, you ready for this? Peak gusts we've seen so far today, 100 miles an hour over at Launch Complex 39B, okay? So it was every bit of a hurricane as it came ashore. But understand, we have so many weather sensors out there, we get better measurements out there. So that's why we've been using that data. Further to the north, 62 current gust over at Daytona Beach. It's 36 in Flagler, 44 DeLand, 43 in Leesburg, and we're into tropical storm force just about here already in Marion County. Good litmus test for those winds, the power outages. 12% of Brevard County without power, which I think is a testament to the reinforcement of what they've done to the grid over these last few years. 38,000 people, but that number could be significantly higher. The numbers are climbing, though, for Orange County. Over 5,000 residents without power, about 2,500 residents without power in Volusia County. So that's where we are now. We do expect to see power outages likely across much of Central Florida, as the next few hours is when the worst of the weather arrives in the metro, and through about sunrise up to the north and west. So there's the storm system itself. There's a lot of time ahead of us. The next couple of hours are going to be quite bumpy across Central Florida. We'll be monitoring it for you.
All right, Eric, thanks so much. And now really the hours here you want to be closely watching, paying attention as the storm really moves through the Central Florida area.
Yeah, and Brevard County is really dealing with the impacts of this storm. We've seen the strong wind gusts and a lot of rain there.
Let's check in now with Scott Hyder. He's not too far from the Melbourne airport. So Scott, set the scene for us right now. Tell us what you're going through.
Well, right now, what's very interesting is, we were in the eye just last hour when we spoke with you the top of last hour, and it was pretty calm. There was a little bit of a rainfall, but the wind had really calmed down that has changed. We're not back to where we were maybe about 2 hours ago, but the wind has definitely kicked up. We're behind a bit of a structure here, and just to either side of me, it is just whipping on both sides. Now, yeah, obviously, as Eric was saying, there's a big concern about electricity outages right now, at least on this part. Again, we're by the Melbourne airport. It's just over here, probably about a half mile. We're a little bit inland from the Indian River Lagoon, and then obviously from the barrier island, where we've really been concerned about that really strong surf and the beach erosion that we started to see yesterday afternoon, really in earnest, and overnight. I'm sure that that's something that's really going to be evident once the sun rises. But right now, we're starting to feel the winds kick back up after that respite because of the eye passing pretty much right over us, or very close to us. So we are getting the winds kicking back up. The rainfall, I have to admit, it hasn't been that steady, and as Kellyanne mentioned, it's not that tropical downpour. We haven't been seeing that, but again, the big concern right now, at least mainland here, in the Melbourne area, and you can look at the map and see it too, that the wind gusts are really getting up there, as evidenced by that. So I think that's really what the focus is. But what's interesting is, I look around here, at least in this stretch, I haven't seen the power go out at all or flicker or anything like that. But the main concern for that would be those exposed areas out on the barrier island. And again, that's something that we'll have to really keep a close eye on over the next hour or two. And then obviously we're going to report to you what's happening out there once the sun rises and they can start to do some assessment and see how things are going over there. Reporting live in Melbourne, Scott Heidler, WESH 2 News.
All right, Scott, so interesting to hear there that it was calm during the eye of the storm passing over there. So hopefully we'll get to chat with Scott a little bit more about that. We want to continue along the coastline, but up to Volusia County. So many concerns there, especially with the waves, the wind, and the beach erosion that we already experienced with Ian.
Yeah, let's get to Claire Metz. Claire, we watched as this wind just really has been battering you for some time now.
It's absolutely wicked right now. This may be the worst of the winds that we've felt. I know Eric mentioned 62 miles an hour. It feels that and then some. Of course, we're in the Daytona Beach Shores area at A1A and Dunlawton, the main beach approach. The beach over this way. Oh, right over there. Big transformer just blew right next to us. So I think this wind is now starting to take a toll on electricity. And just a few minutes before we came on, one of the street lights up there literally came crashing down in front of us. We had to get out of the way. The drama was so significant. But yeah, that was a transformer that just blew, and I can see there's some power outages now as a result of that. Again, this is some of the worst wind we've seen, so much so that you really just can't even stand it. And I'm going to kind of move over a little bit to get blocked here. It's worse right here. I don't want to be a drama queen. It's worse right here because this is a funnel between these two giant buildings. One of the buildings we're at was one of those deemed unsafe yesterday, so police and the sheriff's deputies had to evacuate it. The Pirates Cove here at Dunlawton and A1A. But this wind is fierce anyway, even without that funnel effect, because it's just blowing like a son of a gun and very, very dangerous right now. So you do stay under these protective barriers with things blowing around, like that street light and the transformer that just blew right behind us. And you can't see it now, and it's too dangerous to get out there, is that beach safety public bathrooms that broke apart from the main office buildings yesterday due to the power of the wind and the erosion and the surf. And of course, this is a community that took it so hard during Ian, and now they've got 11 oceanfront properties that are deemed unsafe for any kind of occupancy. 6 of them just deemed yesterday. And a little south of me in Wilbur by the sea, several homes on edge. So I think we're going to know in a matter of 2-3 hours how much more damage is being done to our beautiful oceanfront area and these properties, because I think this is going to be the worst of it. High tide comes up at about just before 9 a.m. So that's going to be a real problem for us, because this surf is just going to still be incredibly powerful then. We know there's also a bit of flooding on the other side of this area. So on the bridge just down the other side at US 1 and Dunlawton, the rivers come up. The river was high anyway. I think it was rising 2 to 3 feet in this system, so there's some intracoastal flooding there. Now, we are under mandatory evacuation here on the beach side, and they haven't been letting people come east. They can go west but not come east, but this wouldn't be a good time to drive anywhere. We were watching our cars in this parking lot literally shaking. So if you can stay inside, stay safe, stay tucked in, and we'll keep you as up to date as we possibly can right here in Volusia County. Back to you.
All right, Claire, really painting the picture there.
Yeah.
Tough conditions, very gusty winds. And Claire said, you know, I'm not a drama queen. We know she's not. She's a straight shooter. She's going to tell you like it is. So if Claire's saying to stay inside, do so, because right now you don't want to be out there.
Yeah, and you heard Eric Burris saying, you know, we've had these wind gusts reaching 100 miles per hour or even above. And we want to get to an area of concern where we found a tree down in Orange County. Our Kendra Douglas is making her way around Central Florida. Kendra, where is this?
Hey guys, yeah, we are coming from Maitland going into Eatonville, and I want to show you right now because at this very moment you can't really see the tree. And as if we can keep, so we're going to keep driving and kind of show you the lights when we turn it on, just so you can kind of be aware of how dangerous it is. We had a car a truck actually, that came around us, didn't realize the tree was there either, and then kind of had to slow down and drive around it. So you really have to be careful on these roads right now. As you can see, the tree has taken over majority of this road. Now we did pay attention. We did see the clear. As you can see, we are driving around the tree, and that's what drivers are going to have to be doing as they come by this way, as they head into Eatonville. Like I mentioned, we already saw a truck that didn't realize kind of what was happening and had to slow down. Another car was coming. So we say this to say you have to be careful out here. And as we're heading into Eatonville, the wind has picked up. The rain continues to go. We have seen a lot of water on the sides of the street, and that is something to be aware of. There hasn't been too many people on the roads, and we actually had a pretty clear time out here, like monitoring the roads, until we saw this tree. And that's when we realized, you know, drivers just have to be careful out here on the road. As you can see, I believe that this is a police officer. We've been seeing that constantly. Police officers just monitoring the roads in the area, making sure people are taking care of themselves and being okay. But again, that tree was coming from Maitland going into the town of Eatonville. So if you are driving that way, just be careful, because right now the tree is taking over. You want to drive slow, and you want to make sure that if you do see someone, you guys somehow communicate to not cause an accident. Mayor?
All right, Kendra, stay safe out there, especially as you're driving around. We so appreciate the report right now.
And we want to turn our attention to our Dave McDaniel, who's been checking out those conditions near Lake Monroe. Sanford's really been getting a lot of wind.
Yeah, Dave, tell us what you're seeing there right now. We were seeing those big waves really coming off the lake a little while ago.
Well, you know, that's right. You know, ever since Nicole formed and we knew the path was going to be bringing it very close, if not through Central Florida, most of the talk up and down the St. Johns River Basin was that this was going to be a flooding event. Ian caused so much flooding, and the people have been suffering. A lot of people with water in their houses and all of that. The water has been receding in like the last 10 days or so, enough to the fact that for Lake Monroe, Lake Harney, and Lake Jessup, it's down now to what is called minor flooding. Still flooding, but not of a major variety, even though records were set after Ian. Nicole is not that, but Nicole certainly is going to bring more rain, and now it's really bringing a significant amount of wind. Now, if we go right back here, this is Seminole Boulevard. This is just a little bit to the west of Sanford City Hall. Look at the water just getting pushed down Seminole Boulevard. Look at the whipping wind, the trees, the signs, everything is blowing. We know we had a 58-mile-an-hour wind gust at Orlando Sanford International Airport, which is not all that far from downtown. And you mentioned, Mayor, that earlier, right along the seawall on the Riverwalk, we were there for like several hours bringing all the information we could to everyone. The wind was just pounding the waves into the Riverwalk seawall. Spray was going over the railing, over the Riverwalk, even reaching Seminole Boulevard itself. I didn't see anything that was damaged. Trees were still standing, light poles were still standing, but that is a lot of water. And that's indicative of the fact that Lake Monroe is an enormous lake, 9,000 acres. And even though it's at a foot above flood stage, it's not all that deep on average. So when you have a shallow body of water with a lot of surface area and a lot of wind, the waves can really get large. It really looked like an ocean for a time, and it's really been pushing a lot of water in that direction. And again, some of that water is going to end up in some of the storm drains, which have been filled to the top since Ian. So there's all kinds of issues that we're going to have to check out later. But so far, we haven't seen any significant damage, not a lot of street level flooding, even though there's plenty of water being pushed around. And of course, Nicole, as it moves across central Florida, is creating a lot of windy conditions. Everybody needs to stay safe. Reporting live in Sanford, Seminole County, Dave McDaniel, WESH 2 News.
And Dave, you know so many business owners in that area. I know you spoke with them after Hurricane Ian. Some of them just reopening a few weeks ago. This just must be heartbreaking for them.
Well, you know it is, and they're keeping a close eye on it. And when you're talking about some of the businesses that are out on Marina Isle, very few of them got water inside. In fact, I don't think any of them actually got water inside their businesses. It was access. It was a matter of getting in and out because of the high water. Now, the businesses in downtown Sanford, the historic downtown, they didn't have any flooding problems. The flooding was primarily right along the Riverwalk and up maybe about a quarter of a block by the Sanford Civic Center, by the Civil Courthouse in downtown, kind of around City Hall. But it never got into the historic downtown business district, and all of those folks stayed open for business once Ian had passed through. And again, they wanted to make sure everybody knew that, and they put the word out because they felt a few people might have been like, you know, not coming downtown, but they were all good. But yeah, you're right. The businesses out on Marina Isle, they were closed for several days because of access issues, because transformers were underwater. They actually had their power shut off to them to make sure that nothing would be a problem, that they wouldn't have any kind of a fire where emergency equipment couldn't get through the high water to get there. Some of the parts of Seminole Boulevard on the east end still have some water over the road. I think that Nicole is going to make that a little bit worse. We'll have to wait and see. But certainly water was coming over the seawall on the west end. And of course, there's going to be a lot of things that are going to be continuing on because Nicole is not done with us yet.
All right, Dave, thank you so much for all that insight. We do appreciate it.
And from Orange County to Seminole County, where Dave McDaniel was, and our coastal communities, Flagler, Volusia, and Brevard, they've been getting hit hard. And wind is really an issue with this storm system. Let's get to first warning meteorologist Kelly Ann Class now as we talk about those winds and especially some pretty powerful gusts.
Absolutely. And most of that is out into Brevard County. We were combing through some of the data, and Eric actually found a wind gust at Launch Complex 39B of 100 miles per hour. But keep in mind, that's several feet up into the air, so it's not at the surface, but you get the general idea that even though this is categorized as a tropical storm, that we're still dealing with those very strong wind gusts. We have tropical storm warnings in effect for every single location, so no longer coastal Volusia County or Brevard County in that hurricane warning, but we could still see those gusts pick up to near hurricane strength at times. We also have storm surge warnings in effect up and down our coastline, really seeing from about Volusia County into Flagler County that push from the east towards the west. So that's pushing all of that water into our coastline. So we're going to be talking about storm surge of about 3 to 5 feet possible. The winds right now out into Brevard County are coming out of the southwest. So not so much talking about some storm surge right along, let's say, Cocoa Beach down to Micco, but more so along the Cape because you're seeing that water being pushed right towards the land. In terms of recent wind gusts within the past about, let's say, 15 to 30 minutes, 63 miles per hour in Orlando, 62 mile per hour wind gusts in Daytona Beach. And we're starting to see those tropical storm force wind gusts continue back towards our west as the center of circulation is now pushing through Osceola County and pretty much going in that west-northwest direction. So heading right over Kissimmee and into the metro. So our winds are really going to pick up. So here's a better look at the wind gusts so far. Again, several feet up into the air. We're talking about 100 mile per hour wind gusts at the Kennedy Space Center, Melbourne, 73 mile per hour wind gusts, Port St. John at 71, and Orlando International Airport was at 60, now needs to be upgraded to 63. So when does the worst of the weather end? Well, we're thinking later this morning, right around 9 o'clock. We're talking about not as strong or gusty winds and the rain ending. As we look towards the I-4 corridor, 12 o'clock in the afternoon, and it'll take some time back towards our northwest for that rain to end and the worst of the weather to end. But overall, we think by this evening, every single location should see those after effects eventually clear out of the way. Flood watch in effect through this afternoon for mostly every single location. Again, we're talking about 4 to 6 inches of precipitation with a couple of locally higher amounts, but mainly going to be concerned for areas along the St. Johns River that they're still dealing with some of that flooding from Hurricane Ian, especially for the St. Johns River at Astor. We're currently at a major flood stage right now at 4.22 feet and expected to stay there or even rise higher to 4.3 throughout the day today and all the way through Friday, and staying in that major flood stage. As we go to St. Johns River at Lake Harney at a minor flood stage, expected to reach moderate flood stage tomorrow, by Saturday rather, through Sunday at 9.1. So kind of here's the key messages that we're worrying about right now is the St. Johns River and also the flooding there. Accumulations though aren't as high as Ian. So I just want to stress we're not expecting feet of rain, but we are going to be watching the St. Johns River for that flooding along the area and significant beach erosion. And of course, Eric, on top of the very strong wind gusts that we are already seeing.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So let's do this. Let's take a look outside and just see what's doing. All right, this is Disney Springs, our tower cam here. A lot of our tower cams are going down because of connectivity / power issues, or like the one in Melbourne just got blown off the roof. So there you go. It's dangling. You can literally watch the parking lot from it. But this is a shot showing the gusty winds and just driving rains in the area. So it's definitely getting worse and worse into the metro area. So let's take a look and see what's doing on our live radar, right? You can see those brighter shades, those yellows and those oranges. That's the worst of the weather. There's the center of circulation. The eye itself beginning to fill in, which is very normal with a weakening tropical cyclone. That eye fills in and it just becomes a big spinning area of moisture. It's almost moving now due west, west, northwest. It's going to slide through the tourist district. Orlando, we may not get the eye in the storm. It may stay just south of us, but over the turnpike right now, Kissimmee getting some of the heavier downpours. Here's downtown Orlando, Chulio, Wedgefield, Lake Mills, back over toward Avalon Park, Timber Creek area, very heavy rainfall. This is basically what's left of the eye wall itself. Moving up next to Longwood, Apopka, back over toward Maitland. You're into Winter Park areas, okay, and then eventually out toward the Turnpike tourist corridor there. But look at the more intense winds marching right toward the metro, right toward I-4. This is going to be the worst of the weather for us thus far in Orlando. If you live out west, Tavares, Astatoula, Howey in the Hills, Ferndale, Montverde, Mineola, Claremont, starting to see things picking up just a little bit. That next one, though, that's moving into Orlando will move your direction and provide some of the rougher weather. Deltona, you're in it now. This is going to be about the worst of it for you. New Smyrna Beach, things continuing to pick up, getting worse and worse for you. Oak Hill, Edgewater, it's still gusty and pouring, but it's not as bad as it was. If you live from about the Ponce Inlet through the shores, through Wilbur by the Sea, there's Daytona Beach, Holly Hill, up through Bethune-Cookman, the Ormond Beach area, getting up toward Painters Hill and Corona. These little ripples here, we're watching to see, there's no rotation that we've seen indicated, but there's some very strong winds in there. These are going to be the more concerning, destructive ripples of energy marching in. And then for us here in Flagler Beach, tapering off just a little bit, but this little wave here, as it gradually lifts up I-95, will make things worse for you. Look out west here. There's Marion County. Ocala starting to see things picking up. Citra, Anthony, Reddick, Williston, Denellen. Things will be getting worse for you in the next couple of minutes' time. And briefly, you can see it's pouring up and down Sumter County. The worst of it working our direction little by little. All right, it is 5:24 and it is pouring outside. Let's take a look at some of those traffic cameras with Megan Mackey.
Yeah, Eric, good morning. It is not a good time to be on the roads this morning. Unfortunately, we're not really seeing that, especially as some of that worst of the weather moves into the metro area. Here's a live look at I-4. Looking at State Road 434, this is in the Maitland area. You can see just how hard that rain is coming down here this morning. And again, not a good time to be traveling. Earlier, we were following several accidents, especially along the turnpike where people hydroplaned and was causing a lot of issues. Here's a live look at the 408. You can see pretty similar conditions here in the metro area at Ferguson Road. Also in Brevard County, still seeing some of that this morning, as well as some traffic lights have started to go out. Looking at State Road 404, this is at North Wickham Road near Satellite Beach in Brevard County. A traffic signal is out here. We could see this more throughout the morning, so especially as these conditions improve, something to be mindful of. Treat those as a four-way stop. Mary and Jason, back over to you.
All right, a good reminder there, when the power is out to treat those lights, red lights, as a four-way stop. And we are seeing outages all across Central Florida.
Yeah, Sheldon Dutez joins us now in studio to take us through the numbers. And Sheldon, we're really talking about the folks by the coast, right?
And Jason and Mayor, as the rain and wind picks up at this hour, we are seeing the number of power outages continue to grow all across Central Florida. Let's pull up the latest numbers for you right now. Florida Power and Light has extensive outages right now. Brevard County has the most, with almost 54,000 customers affected. In Volusia County, we've got 1,400 customers who don't have power. 210 customers are out in Seminole, at least with Florida Power and Light. Duke Energy has more than 19,000 outages across Central Florida, including 10,492 customers in Orange County, 3,800 in Seminole, and a little more than 3,000 in Volusia. As far as Osceola, Lake, Polk, and Brevard counties are concerned, Duke Energy customers, 2,000 outages are reported in those counties. All right, OUC, they are reporting more than 7,000 outages. Most of those outages are in Osceola and Orange counties. We are keeping an eye on these outages, and Jason and Mayor, I'll have an update coming up in our 6 o'clock hour.
All right, Sheldon, thank you. Some good stuff there. As we take a quick break now, we want to take a live picture up in Flagler County.
Yeah, it's an area where we've watched this pier that was damaged in Hurricane Ian, and we're seeing more destruction there as those waves just whip up and batter this structure. Stay with us. You're watching WESH 2 News and continuing coverage as we're tracking Nicole.
I'm AJ Hires. Our Warranty Forever program has saved our customers hundreds of thousands of dollars in out-of-warranty claims. Maybe that's why you need your next Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram from Boniface Hires. Boniface Hires, ChryslerDodge.com. Cocoa, Florida, the home of Warranty Forever. Thank you.
Interest rates are rising, but not at Rooms to Go. Our interest rate is 0 right now during the Rooms to Go holiday sale. Shop living rooms, bedrooms, dining rooms, and pay 0% interest for 60 months. So you can get the furniture you want now and spread the cost out over 60 easy payments. Get beautiful furniture at great sale prices. No interest, no hidden fees, no worries. During the holiday sale at Rooms to Go.
It's time to remodel your bathroom, but you don't want the hassle or the worry of getting it finished. You just want to pick a style and relax, knowing that it'll be wonderful when it's done. Is that too much to ask? No, actually, it's not. Rebath, from start to stunning. Visit our showroom and save $750 off your bathroom remodel.
Very different people. Very different medical conditions, who all have one thing in common. They choose to live life to the fullest. And at Orlando Health, our team of experts deliver award-winning care so you can do just that. Orlando Health. Choose well.
At the Original Mattress Factory, we have a unique way of doing things. After all, original is our first name. Where else can you see and feel the materials inside your mattress? Where else can you talk to the folks hand building your mattress? Where else can you buy factory direct to ensure the best value? Where else can you get a better quality mattress for a better price? The Original Mattress Factory. Where else are you going to turn for a good night's sleep?
I'm AJ Hires. Our Warranty Forever program has saved our customers hundreds of thousands of dollars in out-of-warranty claims. Maybe that's why you need your next Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram from Boniface Hires. Boniface Hires, ChryslerDodge.com. Cocoa, Florida, the home of Warranty Forever. Thank you.
From WESH 2, this is continuing coverage of Nicole.
Tropical storm Nicole is making its presence known in Central Florida this morning with whipping winds and heavy rain. Thank you for staying with WESH 2 News this morning. I'm Meredith McDonough.
And I'm Jason Guy. We have our crews positioned all around Central Florida, making sure to cover this storm for you as it's moving right here through Central Florida. And that includes our first warning weather team. Our meteorologists have been helping you as they've been tracking Nicole for days.
Let's check in now with meteorologist Kellyanne Classo. Kellyanne, take us through. We know it landed as a a hurricane. It's now a tropical storm. And now we're really feeling most of it, right?
Yeah, especially for our central and southeastern locations. At the core of the storm is racing through Osceola County right now, moving up towards the metro and eventually into Lake County. Winds of 70 miles per hour. So even though it is a tropical storm, we are still talking about a high-end tropical storm with wind gusts of about 60 to 70 miles per hour. And you can see that line of rain really stretches all the way down to southwest Florida. For us, we're dealing with the core of the storm. There's that center of circulation. So it made landfall just south of Vero Beach, moving to the west-northwest, now cutting across Osceola County and moving into Orange County. And this is really where we're seeing the heaviest rain right now. So St. Cloud, you're really starting to see those winds pick up. The eye wall has collapsed, so we're not talking about calm conditions in the eye wall anymore. It's just going to be very breezy as that eye wall collapses. But at 5:31, we're tracking the heaviest rainfall right now. Think from about Geneva to Tuliota all the way through the metro and almost down to the tourist district, with just downpours across Azalea Park, Conway, downtown, Winter Park, Maitland, Fairview Shores, all the way up towards Altamont Springs. And this is going to continue to work towards the northwest, so eventually stretching up towards Apopka, Ocoee, and eventually towards Zellwood. Oviedo right now seeing that heavy rainfall up through Geneva is where that kind of line stops, but we're still watching for those pockets of heavy downpours. So don't drive across I-4. Don't drive on any of the highways, because this same batch of rainfall will also pack gusty winds. We've seen a wind gust about 60 miles per hour at the airport, and as this continues to stretch our way, those wind gusts are expected to pick up. Claremont to Ferndale, all the way through Montverde, through Apopka, Ocoee. We're seeing this line of rain stretch all the way into portions of Volusia County and even towards, let's say, New Smyrna Beach. And just off the coastline of New Smyrna Beach and Port Orange, we're seeing some heavier rainfall and even a couple of thunderstorms developing. So we'll be watching this, especially as it moves towards the northwest, kind of back builds and see if it does make its way into Flagler County. But we're really just dealing with widespread downpours across Volusia County, heavier rainfall now pushing into Flagler County. And looking back towards the west, the first round of rain is now beginning to approach Marion County. So from Bellevue, Wearsdale, up towards Ocala and Anthony, you're starting to see that heavy rainfall stretch your way, and all the way up towards Citra. Dry for now, but conditions are expected to deteriorate throughout the day as Nicole continues to push across central Florida, including the strong wind gusts, and talk much more about how strong those wind gusts could get is meteorologist Sarah Burris.
All right, good morning to you. So let's just talk about where we're at. It is a very interesting weather scenario here. You've got a collapsing hurricane, now a tropical storm, just spreading out an already impressive wind field. And now we've got tropical storm force wind gusts essentially across the entirety of central Florida. Let's take a look at some of those gusts coming in right now. For example, in Brevard County, what's impressive is the fact that even with the storm having cleared out, we are still reporting winds running 52 miles an hour gusting. Back over to Melbourne, 59 over at Patrick Space Force Base, 53 over at the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, and 48 miles per hour over at the Kennedy Space Center. Notice the rains are light. It's just so much wind energy there. Into the metro, 55 gusting at Orlando Executive. It's 60 gusting at Orlando International, and 45 down to Kissimmee Gateway. 45 here in DeLand, 52 right now in Sanford, 62 miles per hour at Daytona Beach, and into the kind of subtropical storm force out here in Marion County. So with that said, power outages continuing to go up now. 16% of Brevard County without power, which you ask me is still quite impressive in terms of its low scope. 53,000 people, though, with that number said, being impacted. Across the rest of town, 10,000 in Orange County. There are 60 residents in Seminole County and 0 residents without power up into Flagler County. So that's good news. When does this all end? Little by little, we'll clear things out. So for Brevard County, you got hit first. It will clear out first. By about 9 o'clock, the worst of the weather will be leaving you. It'll still be gusty. You'll still have some squally weather through. Into the metro area, we're thinking around lunchtime when the worst of the weather ends, and then into the afternoon up north and west of town. So there's a look at our first warning. Live Doppler radar, center of circulation over Osceola, worst of the weather, moving through the metro, working up toward Lake and Marion shortly. Another update coming up in just a couple of minutes.
All right, Eric, and we're talking about those gusty winds and really Daytona Beach area. They've been seeing quite a bit of that throughout the overnight hours.
Yeah, let's get straight out to Bob Hazen. Look at that. Bob, that wind is really whipping.
Yeah, it is getting nuts out here in Daytona Beach. We are at the beach access along International Speedway Boulevard, and you can see back here, look at all that rain just pounded through here, coming down the street. It has been really, really windy here, especially in the last 30 minutes, and the rain has picked up as well. And I want to say, if you look up at the sign, the world's most famous beach sign, you can see it swaying there in the wind as well. It has really been getting pounded with this wind and this rain this morning, being bent around up there. I'm a little worried about it coming down, but I know it's been through a lot, so hopefully it'll be all right. And I want to walk you out here. It gets a little rough when we walk further out from the shelter where we are right now. But as we walk out, you can probably tell just how much stronger this wind is. I can't even see right now. Jeez. But if we can turn the camera that way, it's a risky move, but you might be able to see down there how much the water is pushing up the ramp. Can't do it much because we're going to get a lot of water in the lens there, but you can see the water is really pushing up onto the beach access here, to the point where basically it's where the guard shack would be there for people who wouldn't pay to get in. Wow, I really cannot see anything at this point, so much rain in my eyes, but this is what we're looking at here as far as the wind is concerned right at the beach. I can tell you excuse me there, Ricky, the hotel where we are next to, if you look up there on the ceiling, you can see some of the sheet metal starting, the roof rather, some of the sheet metal is starting to come off as well. So a little bit of damage being felt here at this spot in Daytona Beach. I want to show you some video too, if we can bring that up, of when our photojournalist Ricky Scarwood went down to the beach just a little while ago and shot some video of the waves. Didn't actually get too far down to the beach because there's not much left, but that waves were really coming up, almost knocked him off his feet. How bad the waves have been crashing here into the beach access ramp, and that's what we're seeing out here right now. So really the conditions are getting kind of rough with this wind and the rain picking up as well. And we have seen some water in the streets as well, but didn't see any actual roads that are completely flooded out yet. So that's the good news. We did see some transformers blowing up on the way in here as well, too. So that, no doubt, accounting for some of the power outages people are seeing here in the Volusia County, Daytona Beach area. Back to you guys.
Wow, Bob, great job. Bob means business. He's got the hat on backwards. You know it's the rough conditions.
Well,
really,
an hour or so ago it went flying, so I think he found it.
Yeah, he found the backup, or he has another one. But when you see that, you realize why officials are saying, don't go check this out. I know it's 5:30 in the morning. Not many folks are going to, be venturing out there, but it's just dangerous conditions. Yeah. And I think, Jason, when daybreak comes, I mean, it really will be telling when we see a good look at our beaches to see what's happened in the overnight hours.
Yeah, and just from that surf, we know it's not going to be the kind of news people want. It's bad news when it comes to the coast. And we want to move a little bit farther north there. Let's get to Flagler County, where Tony Atkins has been watching the situation with that Flagler Beach pier. Tony?
Hey, Jason. Yeah, I was just listening to Bob's live shot and kind of reliving the experience here in Flagler County. Now, I know each area is different, but here in Flagler County, we also are starting to see rain pick up, and really these whipping winds and these strong gusts pushing their way through. Right now, I'm standing here at the Flagler Beach Pier. It's been up for nearly 100 years. It was severely damaged by Hurricane Ian. I actually want to show you a live shot of the pier right now as the strong winds and waves continue to push through the area. Out here on the beach, there's no one out here outside of us, and that's a good thing because emergency officials want people to make sure that they're somewhere safe as Nicole passes through our viewing area. Now, again, this pier's been up for nearly 100 years, and yesterday we saw a lot of debris which appeared to be from the pier wash up ashore. But I want to bring you back out here live as well to where I am. It's kind of hard to see right now, and you kind of can see another strong gust pushing through right now. Over my shoulder, and I can't really even turn around because at the beach we're getting pelted with sand that's constantly pushing west here. But on the beach, the wake is incredibly strong. It's pushing up. The water is pushing up to the sand dune, which I'm standing right next to. So it's just been constant since we've been out here. In fact, in the past, say, hour or so, things have really picked up. But it has been consistent, strong winds and waves pushing through. Now, as the sun continues to come up, we are going to keep an eye on that historic pier and just see, you know, how much damage was sustained overnight. We know along A1A parts of the road was shut down because debris was blowing onto the roadway, and those were conditions that weren't as bad as they are now. So as the sun comes up, there will be a lot to see and a greater story to tell as we see how Nicole really has impacted things here in Flagler County. For now, reporting live, I'll send it back to you two in the studio.
And Tony, while we have you, let's talk about what we were noticing yesterday. People wanted to get out there. They were trying to see this pier. They wanted to look at the rough surf. Have you seen anybody overnight trying to brave it and get out there?
I haven't seen just about anybody. There was one person who I saw briefly. They came and went. For the most part, no one is challenging this storm. Everybody has been away, maybe as things ease up. But at least for the moment, there's one vehicle driving by. It's unclear what kind of vehicle, maybe an emergency vehicle, but I haven't seen a lot of people out here. Maybe one person, they came and they went. They didn't stick around, Jason.
Yeah, that's what people should be doing. Glad to hear that people are listening to what we've been putting out there to say, stay inside. This is the time where you need to hunker down.
No, for sure. Tony, I had one more question for you before you leave, but I know you might be gone already. But I was just going to ask you, you're new to Central Florida. You've covered 2 hurricanes here within the last few weeks. What are your thoughts?
I don't know. You know, they're tough and they're serious. I will say that, coming from Wisconsin. I never knew much about hurricanes. You hear about them. I'm learning a lot as I'm trying to inform the public. You know, so to be at the beach here is just a new experience. I just want everybody to be safe. I think, you know, Floridians, they know what they're doing. I see a lot of people preparing for these storms, and they're doing it the right way. And when they're not outside, I know that a lot of people shouldn't be outside. So I'm trying to follow the lead of the Floridians, but I'm also learning so I can inform the public. So I'm just happy that Floridians are staying safe here in Central Florida.
No, you got it, Tony. And that's the thing, you know, we're here to ride out the storm together. And it's interesting because many folks are just like Tony, moving to the area, new to Central Florida, and they've been hit with 2 storms in just weeks apart.
Yeah, so. Just to put it in perspective here, Tony has not worked for us 3 months, and we've had him out in the midst of this, yes, with dealing with 2 hurricanes in Central Florida. Tony, thank you for that report there from Flagler Beach.
Stay with us. We'll be back right after the short break.
Welcome back here at 5:45. We continue tracking Nicole, and right now we are getting some of the worst of this storm in Central Florida as the rain is kicking up and we have so much wind.
Yeah, let's check in with Megan Mulatto now. She's in Osceola County. So Megan, we can see where you are right now. You're getting pelted with that rain. Also, I understand you're at a location where there's some boats that are possibly being tossed around.
Yeah, so right now we're at Lakefront Park over in St. Cloud. This is right off of East Lake Toho, and this is the St. Cloud Marina right behind me. It looks like a lot of people actually moved their boats to a different, probably safer location, but the ones that remain, you can see them rocking pretty intensely. Now, I do want to note that the rain and the wind have been in varying intensities all morning. So for some moments, it'll be fairly calm, and then it'll intensify and just get a little bit more windy and just rainier, and like you mentioned, it'll pelt you right on the side when you're standing out here, which is why everyone should be inside. Let us tell you about the conditions outside. Everyone should be safely inside. Now, this area did overflow during Hurricane Ian, causing some St. Cloud residents who live nearby to evacuate from their homes. Right now, the water levels don't look like they're overflowing. They're definitely not in the roadway. They're not even up on this trail right here on Lakefront Park, but they do look a little bit higher than normal. The city posted earlier this week, saying that the lake was slightly below its normal level for this time of year and that it was more than 3 feet below where it peaked after Hurricane Ian. We're told they also had South Florida Water Management District dropping the water levels even further, about an inch a day, as city crews spent their time working to make sure the stormwater systems were operating efficiently. All of this, of course, ahead of Nicole. And the city of Kissimmee and the county say they were also working on that, making sure that stormwater systems were working efficiently, just in hopes that impacts from Nicole didn't even come close to the effects that Ian had in this area. But we'll be monitoring the conditions over here in Osceola County. And of course, as things change throughout the morning, we'll bring you those details on air and online. But for now, I'll toss it back to you in the studio.
All right, Megan, stay safe out there. Just seeing our crews, really, they're just doing such an incredible job. And we do this so that folks at home know what's happening outside, that they stay safe, and that our crews can just assess the situation, tell you what's happening in your neighborhood. And it's just something that is so important for our community and our viewers.
Yeah, and right now we want to turn to our team of meteorologists as they continue tracking Tropical Storm Nicole. And meteorologist Kellyanne Class is here with a look at those winds. It's really strong, as you see, Kellyanne, when it gusts on those reporters.
Absolutely. And, we are still talking about a tropical storm. And, a lot of people are like, oh, okay, a tropical storm, that's not bad. But no, we're talking about 70-mile-per-hour wind gusts right now in Daytona Beach. This is certainly near hurricane status. So even though it's a tropical storm, don't take this lightly. We are still expecting these strong winds to move across Central Florida. We're still on the upper side of the storm. So we're getting all of this wind. We're getting all of this rain as it continues to basically cut across I-4 right now and over the next couple of hours and push back towards the northwest, eventually clearing out by later on today. But right now, Volusia County and especially Flagler County are going to be dealing with that push of water on the coastline. That's why we have storm surge warnings in effect for our coastal locations. So let's time out Futurecast with the gusty winds. This is a look at 7:30. It crosses over I-4, but we're still dealing with wind gusts of about 50 to 60 miles per hour, starting off in Brevard County during this time, right around 40 to 45 mile per hour wind gusts. It's still going to stay breezy out in Brevard County, but the worst of the weather is going to be over by later on this morning. By 11:30, expecting wind gusts about 40 to 50 miles per hour, depending on your location. Palm Coast about 50 miles per hour. Worst of the weather will still be back towards the I-75 corridor. Then around lunchtime, 3 o'clock, conditions gradually improve from southeast to northwest. 3 o'clock in the afternoon, wind gusts about 35 to 40 miles per hour in Marion County, Flagler County, wind gusts about 30 to 35 in our central spots. And then as we go throughout the evening, we're really just talking about breezy, but yet manageable conditions. So we're really into the worst of the weather right now, all the way through the afternoon hours. And again, that threat's going to be from the southeast to the northwest. So it'll linger back towards our northwest a little bit longer. Again, beach erosion on the high side, wind gusts on the high side, flooding and tornadoes also on the high side. Tornado threat will be highest up towards our northern locations, especially out into Flagler County. This is the growing concern over the next couple of hours. Out into Flagler County, the potential for 1 or 2 isolated tornadoes. A watch is possible, so a tornado watch is possible. They're giving it about a 40% chance of issuance. That's by the Storm Prediction Center. And the reason why is because we're watching this cluster of tropical waves beginning to push towards Flagler County. And once that does so, these can move from the Atlantic onshore and quickly spin up. So this is a situation that we're going to be monitoring. As of now, we don't have any active warnings. Of course, once we do, we will get you the latest. But as of now, we do want to head over to meteorologist Eric Burst to talk much more about where the heaviest rainfall is falling.
Right. So you were talking about that band moving into Flagler County. Let's just start on the wider perspective. Center of circulation is about to cross over the Kissimmee River. This thing is really moving. But those storms that you were just showing, Kellyanne, have actually put out a few lightning strikes. But if you live in northern Volusia, around Holly Hill, Painters Hill, Corona, getting up to Flagler Beach, Palm Coast, and of course up toward Bethune Beach, Marineland, we've seen some decent wind gusts. This is going to be the most impressive bands that we have seen yet marching into your area, and we'll be watching it for any little kinks in there that may be generating a tornadic threat. Further inland, we're watching some heavy stuff working through Astor, Paisley, Sorrento, back over toward the Lake Mack area for Marion County. It's about to start picking up for you as that next wave moves in. Remember, each of these waves progressively gets gustier and gustier. Ocoee, Gotha, Windermere, Bay Hill area out from the Butler to the Harris chain of lakes, working over toward Claremont, working right down the turnpike. You know what I'm talking about. This is very, very intense rain. Gusty, gusty winds. Montverde out over Lake Apopka. And frankly, down here around the 429, you see those red shades? That's probably winds in there of about 60 miles an hour. That'll be crossing over U.S. Highway 27, getting out toward Mineola and Groveland in the next couple of minutes' time. Down around Disney World, it's a little bit lighter, but this, as it moves off toward the west, is going to really wake some people up. Yalaha talking to you at about 6:32, Claremont 5:59, Bushnell by about 7:10, and Lakuchi by about 7:23. There's the center of circulation. It's not that open eye like we saw earlier. It's filled in because the storm system is weakening. But one thing that's of note is that the winds back behind it, while it doesn't look like much, right? But the winds back behind it are really forceful out of the south-southeast, still running 20 to 30 sustained with significantly higher amounts. So keep that in mind. So what about the timing for this, right? So there's the center of circulation, 6 o'clock. We'll continue to work it off toward the west, little by little by little. By 9 o'clock, center of circulation's over like I-75, but we're still getting those gusty winds through the metro and our western areas. And then by 11, 12 o'clock, the showers will be lightening up. The overall wind field will continue to drop. So that certainly is the good news. But in the meantime, storm surge, gusty winds, the whole 9 yards. We're dealing with this storm. Even if it's weakening, it is still going to be impactful for some time. All right, it's at just about 5:54. Let's get a look out on the roadways. It is a downpour of sorts.
Yeah, it is, Eric, and it is causing some traffic issues this morning. Of course, you should not travel or be out on the roads if you don't have to be this morning, but we are still seeing some people traveling, which is why we are tracking some accidents. This one on the turnpike involving an 18-wheeler. This is on the northbound side as you're approaching OBT in Orange County. It is blocking those left 3 lanes, and we are seeing especially these larger vehicles involved in these accidents because of those strong gusty winds as well as that rain. So stay off the roads. We're also still tracking some of those conditions over in the Daytona Beach area as well as in Volusia County. This is a live look. Highway 92 at Morris Road. You can see pretty shaky camera here as well as that rain. Also, some of those causeways heading into Daytona Beach are closed because of the integrity of those bridges. So that's Oak Ridge Boulevard, Mason Avenue, Main Street, International Speedway Boulevard, as well as Silver Beach Avenue. And those will remain closed until FDOT has the opportunity, when it is safe to do so, to evaluate those bridges. Mary and Jason, back over to you.
All right, Megan, now we want to take our viewers here through some photos that we've been seeing through the overnight hours. This is from the city of Cocoa. Take a look at this mess. They say that they have trees down blocking roadways throughout the city. They continue to stress for residents to stay indoors, don't assess the situation until light comes out, and really have the experts do that. They're reminding people to remain off the roadways until crews can safely clear trees that are down. Also, we want to show some video here in Oviedo near City Hall. Just strong winds that continue. We've seen heavy gusts move through the area. We're talking, above 55 miles per hour in some locations. Even by the coastline, Eric Burr is mentioning that there was a 100-mile-per-hour gust at the Space Coast. So basically, we just wanted our viewers to see what it was like out there. You can hear the rain. You can see the windy, breezy conditions. So just monitor this thing from inside your homes.
Yeah. And staying safe is most important. That's why we have schools shutting down today. And that goes for Osceola, Orange, Seminole, Lake, Brevard, Polk, Volusia, and Flagler counties. Campuses are closed today and tomorrow in all of those counties for either Nicole or in observance of Veterans Day on Friday. And in Marion County, schools are closed today. Leaders are hoping to open tomorrow after safety checks. That's later today.
Generator safety for long living here Floridians. We know that you know the deal, but still this is our job to make sure that people know and just update them on generator safety tips. If you lose power during the storm and you're relying on your generator to keep the lights on, here's some tips. Make sure it's in a well-ventilated area away from doors, windows, and vents. Never use a generator in an attached garage, even with the windows open, and always turn that generator off. Let it cool down before refueling, and never refill a generator while it's hot.
And keep in mind with the generator safety here, that's an odorless, tasteless gas that can poison people because of carbon monoxide that comes from those generators. And the Florida Department of Health reports at least 41 people in the first 2 weeks after Ian made landfall. The previous storm, just 6 weeks ago, succumbed to carbon monoxide poisoning.
No, and sadly, Jason, I mean, we've covered families that have, suffered fatalities because of this after several